Yassas and welcome to Vasily's Garden, folks. We just did a workshop today on the veggie garden, preparing your veggie garden bed, and we had a great group that came through. Craig Castry joined us, who shared a lot of wonderful and valuable knowledge. And for those who don't know about the soil and the life in the soil, it's something you really got to start looking into. It's another world underneath there, and we really got it wrong, folks. We really need to understand what it takes to actually grow a healthy garden bed. So what we're standing in front of here is one of the raised beds that we prepared. Now, before we go into this one, let's go to the other one that we did in the earlier workshop. This was almost about 2 weeks ago that was planted out. Use the same procedure. Cardboard at the bottom. We got carbon layer, which is the straw, but decomposing straw, so it's already activated with microbial activity, so the microbes and the fungi and the composting creatures are in there, breaking it down. Then we've layered it with some compost and our planting mix on top, and then we topped it off with, I use a bean straw. You can use all types of sort of straws, but more importantly, when you do apply the bean straw, you need to activate it, and that's my method. And what I mean by activating it is sitting it in a wheelbarrow. Over here, for example, this is the barrow that we used today. And I set the bean straw in there. Now you can use pea straw if you like. I put the bean straw in here, and then I filled it up with water and EK Butch and liquid gold, and that's a biostimulant to activate the microbes, get it to start breaking down. So the composting process is activated not only from above, but from below the bed as well. So if you've got composting going on down below and then above, can you imagine that's like a beautiful big, I won't say meat sandwich because we've got some vegans watching, a beautiful salad sandwich, how's that? And they come in together and you've got all the microbial activity going. Worms will start to activate and appear out of nowhere. They're magical, those little creatures. You've got earthworms and composting worms. Now I think I did show you a bed that we did a couple of months ago. I can't remember. Let's go and have a look quickly. Now the general rule is, and this is composting worms we're talking about, because your garden bed will have composting worms, which are the small worms, the little ones. Now you've got the big earthworms, that does the bulk of the work, and that really starts to activate the earth down below and brings it up and aerates the soil and starts to create the humus for you. But you still need the composting worms on top, which live in about 100 mil of soil, about that deep there. Now this bed here doesn't get enough sunlight, and we've had a lot of struggle with the birds, but nevertheless, don't worry about the plants in here. It's their first cycle, and they've copped a beating from everything besides, good nature and wildlife. Everything's been in here and attacked it, so we've had to cover it over. But more importantly, when I came in here earlier to show the group, I just opened up a little spot like this here, and I grabbed a handful of soil. More, look at that there. There's worms there, they're falling out of my hands. Another one there, there's more here. So the general rule of thumb is,
pick up a bit and drop it again. Okay.
Now the general rule of thumb is, with every shovel's worth of soil that you dig out of the ground, now I've disturbed these and they're going to go down deeper, you need to have approximately 25 worms. Now I had a handful, or say 2 handfuls like this full of them, and I reckon I had at least 25 in that cluster there. So that's what you want to see activating. So this bed here is already sunken, and that's what's going to happen to the other beds. And then we're going to replant this again with all sorts of varieties going in here, including flowering plants. So back to the other beds. So in this bed here, folks, we've got 4 varieties, or 4 plant families, I should say that correctly. So we've got beetroot, we've got lettuce here, we've got the Solanaceae family here, which are the capsicum and the tomatoes, and we've got some spring onions, actual onions. I think they're odorless, red odorless going on in here. So that's a bit of a companion plant. What's missing in here is a bit of flowering. So you can get some of your favourite flowering plants in spring, summer, and plant them as well, because what they do, they bring all the good predators, they bring actually the pollinators as well, and that helps to keep the ecosystem flourishing really well in your garden, and you'll have a better colony of microbial activity in the soil. So you'll populate the soil a lot quicker with the life that you need, which is what feeds your plants from the roots up, because your plants feed them. Now this is the bed that we prepared today with the team. Now my topic here, and I've gone from one topic to another. One is the companion planting and an array of plants. So we've got feverfew in the corner, we've got lobelias, we've got some brassicas in here as well. We've got a capsicum growing, or capsicums growing as well, and silver beet. So This is not a bad companion planting mix, so we should get a really good burst of life. And this also, the mulch, as I said earlier, has been activated, so the biostimulant's been added, so this should take off really well. But what's more important before you get to this stage, folks, is when you shop for your seedlings. Now, why I bring this topic up today is because I had some seedlings brought home from my darling wife, and I said to her, run down to your local store, grab what you can so we can do this little workshop, because I didn't get any seedlings organised and my seeds haven't germinated as fast as I would have liked them to. So we do support our local stores and things like that. But you've really got to do your research as far as your local garden centre is concerned, and hopefully you do have one near you and support them. It's vital that we really keep them alive and active, because that's the basis of life in our garden, really. If you're talking about growing something edible from your garden, even your flowering plants, which are, you know, your companion planting, you want to make sure that your seedlings that you buy are well and truly ready to go into your garden, as opposed to these ones here. Now, we proceeded to plant them anyway, but when you buy seedlings, you need to look at one thing, is the hardening off. And now we all know what a good healthy seedling looks like versus one that isn't, but you also need to be able to recognise even the healthy one, whether it's hardened off or not. And what I mean by that is the plant is actually quite firm in the stem. It's not soft and succulent and really delicate to touch, or that when the sun comes out, it wilts over really quickly because it's been brought on real fast. So you'll find seedlings that haven't been hardened off or really brought on quickly, because the growers all have to do it. It's just like our monoculture farming. They all use, you know, the chemicals and fertilizers as they need to bring them on fast and supply on demand, which is the wrong way to go about it. Well, I suppose it isn't the wrong way to go about it. What's wrong about it is that they're measuring it by weight, not by nutritional density. So when you're buying produce from your supermarkets, it's the weight that you're paying for, not the nutritional value in that fruit or vegetable that you're buying, which is the way it should be done, because the whole dynamics in gardening and horticulture will change dramatically, and your outlook and onset on how you grow your garden will change as well. But when it comes to buying seedlings, it's a similar thing. They're brought on fast in a controlled environment, liquid fed, so they use all sorts of fertilizers, and I won't say they're all organic, most of them wouldn't be, but that'll bring on the plant. Now, yes, I have planted these in my garden, yes, and some of these are probably hybrids or you know, being brought together so they can grow a specific way and style, and probably not be able to harvest the seed from it. But they're little beds that I'm doing trials with, and I want you to keep that in mind when you're judging the garden here. This garden bed, yes, it does feed our family, but it's also a trial environment where we do different trials of soil mixtures and applications and how we apply it and what combinations of plants we put together to see how successful we are. Because we are talking about measuring the nutritional density, the sugar levels in your plant by doing the Brix test. Now the Brix test, as you know, I've done earlier. If you haven't watched it, look it up on one of our videos, you'll find it. It's measuring the sugar levels or the nutritional density of the vegetable or fruit or whatever you're growing in your garden to see where it sits. And it's measured from 0 to up to 30 or 32 points, or Brix. Now we did tests earlier in the month, or about a month ago, on some of the veggies out there. I think it was cabbages and cauliflowers and things like that, and the levels were quite low, but the veggies were also quite small, so that plays a role, plus a sun factor. But today we did a test, and Craig, you can please make a note there at the bottom for us, you know, mention about it, because you did the test unbeknownst to me. Well, you asked for the leaves of the plant, and I thought you were going to eat them, but instead you squeezed the juice out of them. And then you walked around and gave everybody a Brix test, and you questioned me, what do you think they were going to be? Now, the leaf that I gave him was the bottom leaf, which was eaten, completely chewed up. And if you want to come and have a look at it, I'll show you where we were. It was from this plant here that I removed. You can see the bottom leaf's just been cut off. And I should mention that too, because it's been a bad habit of many of us gardeners from all over the world. This is one of the old leaves. So it looked pretty much like that, maybe not as chewed up. And we squeezed the juice out of this and put it through the refractometer and got the reading, and it was sitting around 8. Now, it's a lot higher than what it was when we first read them earlier in the season. So 8 on an overcast day like this, which means the solar panels aren't really absorbing a lot of sunlight. They're not generating a lot of sugars, so they're not as active. It's typical some solar panels like on your house. On a cloudy day, they don't work as well as they would when it's really sunny. So I got a reading of 8, which would mean that these top leaves here, and we'll do it later on because I don't want to keep chewing up on my leaves here, mate. I want the plants to actually form. We should get a higher reading. And the purpose of that is, if you're growing produce or vegetable, well, anything really, in fact, fruits, if you're ripening your fruit and you're not sure if it's ready, you can either do the squeeze test, or you can actually take one fruit off and squeeze the juice out of it onto the refractometer, and it'll give you the bricks reading. And normally when it sits around 12, 14, 15, 18, depending on the type of fruit, it's telling you when it's ripe and ready for harvest. And in the case of plant protection and nutritional density, the bricks test, we use that to measure how well the plant is equipped with the nutrients and vitamins and minerals it needs to warn off pests and diseases. So when it's at a reading of 12, and that's the sort of the benchmark that we work off, 12 reading will give you a real safe environment for your plant to be able to stop pests and diseases attacking, and more so the fact that the insects or the chewing and sucking insects can't eat through a leaf that's sitting at 12 and above. It's just they can't digest that sort of leaf. They can digest the weak plants like that, and they'll basically decompose it for you, and that's what they do. So if your garden's infested with pests and diseases, it means your life in the soil, and that's where it starts from. The life in the soil is really minimal or low. You need to activate that. And the only way to do that is by adding organic matter, compost, aged manures, our superfood, and biostimulants to activate it. So that's the point of that. But back to the topic of seedlings. Support your local garden centres, folks, and that's vital that we keep them active and alive. Going to the big chain stores is okay, I'm not saying you can't go there. We all do go there, and I'll put my hand up to that. But when it comes to buying seedlings, it's your garden centres, your independent stores who will take the extra care to maintain these and harden them off for you if they're not already hardened off when they're supplied to the store. And you want to get something that's quality. And if it isn't hardened off and you're desperate to buy it and you're at one of those chain stores, make sure you realise that and slowly acclimatise the plant. So bring it out in the mornings where it's going to be in its final resting ground, and then maybe bring it back inside in the afternoon or evenings to protect it so it hardens off slowly. So it'll take probably up to a week to harden it off, sometimes a little bit longer, maybe less, depending on the variety. But either way, when you do get your seedlings, first and foremost, go to your local garden centres and support them until the cows come home, because without them, we're stuffed. And second to that, start collecting your seeds. Heirloom open pollinators are what you need to have. Seeds are the best way to grow your own veggies because they'll have the DNA embedded in them from the previous plant that you've grown. So if you've got open pollinators and you can collect the seeds, by all means do that. Store it because it'll adapt and it'll have it imprinted in it on how it grows in that microclimate you have. And that way it won't struggle as much the following year, if at all. And that way you'll have a better crop every time. And when you're using organic food and biostimulants like we have, you're guaranteed to have a successful crop and a very nutritional, beneficial produce that you take out of it that you can share with the family and friends, which looks after your gut health, and that's important. And we've got our seeds on special, so go online and take advantage while they're discounted. And the planting mix and compost too, so if you haven't got any, you can get to a store near you that's got our range. By all means support them and enjoy a wonderful and bountiful garden. From me, Vasily, Maresi.